What is up, everybody? It's the Don with the Don Tech, and today I wanted to actually give you a little tutorial video in replacing thermal pads in the EVGA 1070 and 1080 series graphics card. Now, this is an optional mod for your EVGA graphics cards, and it's in no way required, especially since EVGA has come out with their own BIOS update. I'll put a link in the description below so you can see that as you need to. But this video serves as the purpose of demonstrating how you would actually install those thermal pad mods onto your graphics card if you wanted to do so. And the pads are free from EVGA if you register your card with them, and they will help reduce the temperature usually on your VRAM and some other components of the graphics card as demonstrated in the installation. So I hope that that information would be helpful to you, and we're going to go ahead and start off with a GeForce GTX 1070 FTW. And for this, it's really simple. You only need a couple of things here. You just need a Phillips head screwdriver, which I've got right here. You can also use a flathead screwdriver to remove the fan pins, which just comes to, how easy it is to get them out. We'll find out. You're going to need the actual thermal pads themselves. Like I said, link below to get the pads from EVGA. Some thermal paste, which comes with the pads. You're going to want some isopropyl alcohol to clean off the existing thermal paste that we're going to be removing as we take the graphics card apart, and then some lint-free cloth, paper towels, whatever, to go through and wipe up any of that thermal paste. I've also got the instructions here that I'll be following just to make sure that I replace everything that you want to have replaced. This came with it, and there's actually quite a lot of steps, but I'll try to do the best I can without having to read too much. Like I said, this is on the GTX 1070. This is the FTW edition. Most other cards that you're going to be going through are going to be almost identical to this. They just might be different, as they say, and maybe some screw placements, but these thermal pads are all the same. So you've got 3 thermal pads for the VRAM, and you've got a, it might be difficult to see here, but you've got a narrow pad right here and a thicker pad right here. So with this one, the first step in this is going to be doing the VRAM thermal pad mod, which has you taking out the exterior screws around the actual graphics card. And as you can see here, it lays out the different ones depending on which one you have. And this one is going to be just pretty much all these silver outlined screws. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but all these silver outlined screws are going to be what we're going to remove at this point. All these screws are the same size, so it doesn't matter where you put them as long as you don't lose them. So once all those screws are out, you just go ahead and you remove this, and you've got the back plate off. So set that aside for now. We're going to come back to it in a little bit. And I'm going to move the graphics card this way so the orientation lines up a little bit more with what you may see and what I'm seeing on the guide here. So what they're going to have you removing is going to be, for this version of the card itself, we have 3 more screws in the PCB right there. And then they're going to want you to remove the 4 screws right here that are going to be holding in the actual, I think it's usually the heatsink that's held in with that. So you want to avoid the screws on the end here, as those are going to be actually holding in the IO shield, IO plate. And these screws from these, they're a little bit different in size, they're a little bit smaller, so just make sure that you differentiate where those go. The next step is going to be removing these 4 screws in the middle here. Usually you want to loosen them up just a little bit at a time, and then you just can remove them when they're just a little bit loosened. It just prevents any unnecessary stress or pressure being put on any parts of the PCB or any of the other components underneath. And so before we continue any further, I want to make sure that you guys know that you want to make sure that you ground yourself first, and not in the way where you go to your room, but you ground yourself in the sense where you pretty much discharge the electricity from your body. When you go fill up your cars and they say, hey, put your hand here on this metal part and that will discharge the static electricity of your body. Usually that happens when your foot will hit the bottom of the car, if you get out, at least the way that I do, and you'll discharge yourself that way. Once your body makes contact with metal, usually you'll discharge yourself. And if you're sitting in a position like I am, once you discharge yourself, you're going to be fine. If you're moving around a lot or something, you want to make sure you have an anti-static wrist wrap or an anti-static ankle wrap, as that looks much more aesthetically pleasing since you don't have something on your wrists. So once you have that on you, then you can go ahead and make sure that you are going through and working with the rest of this delicate piece of equipment, because the last thing you want to do is damage your card. And then from that point, when you're going to be going through, there's going to be two connections that you're going to want to make sure are going to be removed before you take this entire thing off. But we're going to have a fan connection here, fan and or LED connection right here. So that's where that flathead screwdriver can come in handy when you're going to be able to pry that up. Yeah, you can just pry it up with your nails too if they're just long enough. Do it on equal pressure on both sides, and that was easy enough there. And the second one, as you can see, it's going to be a little bit more in there, so just using fingers carefully removes that connection just fine. And then there you have it. You've got the heatsink and the shroud itself. So that's pretty big right there. So the next step, I'm not sure yet, so I'll put this away and figure out what we're doing. So I wanted to clarify something real quick. The instructions here tell you what you're supposed to remove with the green circles, the red circles, and then telling you not to remove that gold circle down there. However, there's another screw right up here that has no indication whatsoever as to whether or not you remove it or leave it, but you do need to remove it. And that screw itself is going to allow us to lift up this entire heatsink plate, because right now it's getting stuck on this screw right here. And if you lift the plate over, the card over, you've got that screw right there, and it's nowhere mentioned in the documentation. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. You know, even the instructions have flaws, and I'm figuring out with you guys as we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that screw now, and that's gonna drop the base plate. And that is gonna be the same size as the 3 screws that were lining up here. So you can go ahead and put that in the same pile as I did. So then you're gonna wanna carefully flip this beauty over. So the next steps is going to be where it gets a little bit more into the complications of things. They want you to remove these thermal pads here on the graphics card base plate itself. So you're going to have, I guess, 8 of those. They just want you to remove those, and you're not going to have to use them again. So just feel free to stick them somewhere or let them just become a part of your body if they're not going to leave. And then what they want you to do is, using your clean cloth or lint-free cloth and this isopropyl alcohol, they want you to clean the thermal paste off of the GPU die itself and off of the VRAM chips as well. There's not really a lot of residue on my VRAM chips, so I don't think I'm going to have to be too concerned about that, but I will get some and end up cleaning off the actual GPU die itself, and then reapply the thermal paste with that. And if you've never used isopropyl alcohol before, one, it's an antiseptic, I think, for actual injuries. Yeah, antiseptic for actual injuries, but can also be used to remove gunk and goop from various components, and it's not conductive, so it's not going to damage any of the stuff that it touches. And the problem that we're going to be dealing with here is we may clean this off very well, but it's going to require a bit more detail work to clean the actual PCB that's got some of that thermal paste in it. But since the thermal paste itself is 1, non-conductive, and 2, is not making contact with the heatsink at this low level, as you can see, it's got you've got the actual die and the actual part that really makes contact, and then you've got the chip around it. And in the corners, you've got a whole bunch of thermal paste that was from when it was originally smushed. And if you can't get all that out, that will be fine. It's not going to cause any problems. And when you reapply the thermal paste as well, it's going to actually bleed into that area anyway. And like I said, since it's non-conductive thermal paste, it's not going to cause any damage to the components. And you're going to have to be a little careful. My paper towel is snagging a little bit on the actual chips. But as long as you just clean it all up, you will be completely okay. And now that I've got it to a point where I'm satisfied, I'm just going to give it another rub to kind of smooth it all out. And I'm just going to gently rub down the VRAM itself. I guess I should note, when you read the instructions, they also tell you to clean the residue off of the back plate where the VRM sat. The next step that they want you to do is get the thermal paste, this right here. They want you to get the thermal paste and squeeze out some onto the actual graphics card's die, and then they want you to add these VRM thermal pads onto the spots where they should go. To make it easier and to avoid the chance of accidentally hitting this or smudging it, I'm going to add the thermal pads first, and then I'll go ahead and add the thermal paste afterwards. What you've got here is a very interesting situation because it's on cardboard, so you have some plastic on both sides of the actual thermal pad itself. So just gently remove that, and you're going to have 2 long ones, 1 small one. You've got 2 long rows and 1 small row, so just obviously those go where they need to go. Try to place them on as well and as straight as you can, and then just remove that itself. If you want to use any additional pressure to push it down, I'd recommend holding onto the plastic piece that you took off, so that way you're not using your fingerprints, smudging it up or anything, and then you can get a better seal because it doesn't stick to that, whereas it will stick to your fingers. And then we've just got the 2 other thermal pad pieces themselves, and just in the same way, start by removing, placing as centered on both sides as you can make it. Pat it down a little bit, try to get a good seal. Then gently remove the other film. Making a good, nice, tight connection. Okay, one final just little pat down on all those components, and they are all set now. We've got the VRAM reinstalled in regards to the thermal pads, so next we can actually go ahead and add the thermal paste. The thing I did not include in the list of things you will need is scissors and or a knife. Haha, because you do not need scissors and or a knife. You just rip it with your bare hands. And then you're going to go ahead and add thermal paste to the actual die itself. Now, I'd like to show you a quick picture what it actually looks like. So I don't know how well that's gonna show up. They've got a thick little, larger than a pea size glob on there. So with thermal paste on graphics cards, you do not have to worry about bleed over whatsoever. And you'd rather use a little bit more than not to make sure that you do have enough. So that will suffice for me. It's, I don't know, about half the packet maybe that I used, and that will solidify nicely, and then there will be bleed over from that, but it is completely okay. You want to use more than less when it comes to the graphics cards because you want to have that compound there. Okay, I lost some footage there, but the only thing that I missed is putting back this plate over the thermal pads once they were installed, and then screwing it in with just 1 screw right there. So now we're just going to continue with the other pad installation and securing this guy to finish up this repair. So the next step is going to be installing this thin piece right over these chips right here. The next step is going to be taking that narrow thermal pad and taking it off of both the sides of that plastic film and trying to line it up the best that you can over that little line of chips right there. And you want to make sure that it's going to be within the boundaries of this plating. You don't want any bleed over on either side. And this is definitely very sticky, so you want to do the best that you can to secure it in there without lifting it back up. And that will unfortunately mean you cannot use the plastic pieces, the film around it, because it's just going to stick right back to that. After that's all done, the next step is going to be kind of some reassembly piece, because all we have left is this thicker thermal pad. Now for the reassembly, the next step is going to be reconnecting these connectors to the actual PCB and reconnecting the heatsink. The problem is these steps never told you to remove the thermal paste from the heatsink. They had you remove it from the die, but not the actual heatsink. And you don't really want to mesh old and new thermal compound I'm going to take a little bit of time here and just clean off this particular segment, and then we can reapply the heatsink. So same deal, paper towels, nice and easy, isopropyl alcohol. You might actually be able to take some of this off first without the alcohol because it's pretty thick on here. You can almost take it completely off without any of the alcohol, but you like to give it a nice finish to it. A nice, not so much a sheen, but you like to clean it as best as you can, so that way you just get rid of any residue, so the contact that it makes when you reapply it is as good as possible. And as you may be able to see, there's just a little bit of grunginess around there, and this alcohol should take it out. All right, perfect. And the benefit of isopropyl alcohol is it dries extremely quickly, and we should not need this anymore for the rest of the installation. So having installed that, we're going to go back, get the actual graphics card itself, and we're going to line it up with where the connectors are. So we have the two fan connectors down on this side, and the two fan well, more so the actual cables on this side and the connections to the board on this side. So to the best of your ability, you're going to want to go ahead and line it up and reconnect these. You don't have a huge amount of wiggle room, so you're going to have to get pretty close. And when you're getting pretty close, you're going to want to commit when you start to make contact with this, because the more that you kind of lift up and put it back down after you make that initial contact, you can create air bubbles and not give yourself as good of a thermal compound conduction, I guess, as you could. So let's make this as best we can. And what may help you with this would be a flathead screwdriver as well, just in case you're uncomfortable pressing the pins on the fan, because you don't want to actually cause too much damage to the fans, the pins themselves. Then the second one just goes right here. I got this one. I think this one is the fan and this one is the LED connector. And the fan connector actually was a little bit more difficult. The LED connector was much more simple. Now that those are in, you just go ahead and push it down into place, and you are pretty much good in that. So you just make sure that it's nice and secured. You've got the bracket here for the I/O. You want to make sure that that's going to be nice and even. The next phase is going to be securing the heatsink down to the actual unit itself. So carefully flip it over, holding on to the actual heatsink and the PCB. And depending on how much gap there is between here and the table, you might want to hold on to this with one hand so you don't actually cause any disconnections between the parts, but I think I'm going to be okay right here. And the next thing is going to be taking the 4 spring screws that you removed from the actual heatsink, and you're going to just be slightly installing them in a diagonal pattern. So I'm just doing the bottom right, the top right, and then whichever else one I feel like doing. You're not going to screw these in all the way just yet. I'm doing about 2-3 turns to hold them into place, and then I'm going to tighten them all in the same way that I put them back in. So that way you're getting a nice even pressure applied throughout. And then we have it. We are almost all the way done. We just have one final bit of the puzzle, which is the thick thermal pad here. And I think this one is almost the least needed. It goes on the underside of, it goes in a lot of different spots. So it goes over a lot of things, but primarily it goes under the chips that we just applied the thermal padding to the other side on. So now that we've got everything reassembled and we've got the screws back in place for the heatsink, the next thermal pad is going to be this thick thermal pad that essentially lies between these 4 screws here. And on the actual back plate itself, it's going to lie between those 4 screws right there on this particular FTW model. And there were a couple of rubberized pieces that I took off from just this area to clear way to be able to install this thermal pad. The interesting part about this one is they want you to apply the thermal pad to the actual back plate. They don't want you to put it on there, maybe so it's a easier to align fit. But same as always, you just try your darndest to get this plastic film off of both sides. And then our final install is with this rubber pad itself. You're going to go ahead and just apply it the best you can into the center of where it's outlined in the actual manual, which is going to be between those 4 screws. And this one's probably going to be the most difficult one you're going to try to install because of how much material there is to work with. And as you can see here, it's not really wanting to play nice with me, and I gotta kind of realign it a couple of times. But I think that one may be the actual winner right there, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. And the compression that you'll get when you screw this back in will be enough to completely secure it and seal it. And the second to the last step is going to be reattaching some of the screws before we put the back plate back on. And on this card, we just had 3 of them, and that's going to go in the spots that I'm screwing in right now, 1, 2, 3, and that's where there are no holes on the actual back plate, so it's pretty easy to tell. And those screws were a little bit different. They were a little bit smaller actually than the screws that go around the rest of the system. And now you're pretty much completed. You go ahead and you just carefully align this up in the direction that it needs to go. There's really only one way to install it, so you'll know pretty quickly if you're installing it correctly. And usually the logo is going to read up with the way that this back section is. So they kind of both read upward. So you just place it right on like that. Make sure you line up any of the screws, and it just lays on there. And you go ahead and you just install the screws afterwards in however many places there were, 14 or something like that. And then this installation is complete. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you were able to learn something about it. If you have any comments or concerns about the actual, process, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below, and always check out EVGA. They have an extremely helpful support section, and they've always tried to do as right as they can by their customers. The reason why they came out with these thermal pads was kind of an intermediate solution before they could figure out the problem, it seems, because they do have a BIOS update that should be able to reduce any need for this whatsoever. So as long as you get that BIOS update as linked in the description below, you shouldn't have to worry about anything. So thank you all for watching. Give this video a like if you liked it, give it a dislike if you disliked it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I definitely look forward to making more of these sort of videos, tutorial videos, to kind of help you in regards to how you can better serve your computers and your computer equipment and everything related. So if you want to see more of those, just feel free to subscribe. And as always, remember, the Don's got your back.